not. It's like you missed me or something. We've been off for our summer break, and we're back with the first taping of the second season of More Up North. And it's been an amazing year. So I want to thank all of you for watching, and all of you for coming in, and all of our panelists and everyone else. And I think tonight's going to be a great show. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're all joining us. And of course, the election's coming up, and there's always that ballot bait. It seems that we have ballot initiatives that are put on for nefarious reasons, and I'm not accusing one side or the other. Maybe I am. But this particular election season, it seems like there's quite a bit of ballot bait. And ballot measure 1, the gag law, basically. I want to talk about it because it looks really sort of attractive on the ballot, but if you don't know what it really means, you're going to get a nice shiny box full of possibly poop. It's not a good deal. Joelle Hall is here. She's the Director of Operations for the Alaska afl-cio and a former dorm mate of mine at college and a rock star. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
So ballot measure 1, okay, for people that don't know or they haven't heard about it, who got it on the ballot and then where did they go?
Well, that's a really good question. They attempted to get on the 2008 ballot. It was brought to the ballot by a man named Scott Kohlhaas and then started to be backed by a guy out of Fairbanks named Dick Randolph and Mike Prax, with funding from some out-of-state funders who have done this kind of thing all over the country. They missed the 2008 ballot, but continued to collect signatures, so now they're on the 2010 ballot. They were busily working, they got their signatures, they got them turned into Division of Elections, they convinced 37,000 Alaskans to sign it under the guise of anti-corruption. And then this last session happened, and it turned out that they would have to disclose the people who were the source of their funding to fund this campaign, because normally under Alaska law, ballot initiatives, you could hide your money through a C4, which is what they were attempting to do. As soon as it became clear they weren't going to be able to hide their funding, they abandoned their campaign in Alaska, and they said, we're not going to campaign anymore rather than reveal our donors. So
they're fighting corruption and at the same time not saying who will pay to fight corruption.
Precisely.
Is that like being just a superhero? Like they think they're just going to be, you know, Batman and no one really knows who that is? I mean, it's really kind of hinky that they pulled out.
Hinky's a great, yes.
Hinky is a great word.
A great word.
For those of you at home, the word hinky, go look it up. It's a good word, and it applies to all kinds of things in Alaska. Mayor Dan Sullivan. So you'll actually see his picture, and then Prop 1, and then possibly Prop 2, but we'll talk about that later. So ballot measure 1, it's an initiative prohibiting the use of public funds to lobby or campaign and prohibiting holders of government contracts and family members from making political contributions. How does that line up constitutionally with the First Amendment right to free speech? I mean, we just had the Supreme Court say corporations have free speech, and now we're going to actually take speech away from human beings in Alaska because of who they're related to? Thousands
of human beings in Alaska and communities, you know, by extension, if a corporation has First Amendment rights, certainly we do as a community have the right to communicate our needs to other levels of government. But what this would essentially do is it would prohibit any elected official, school board member, whether it's a village mayor or the mayor of Anchorage or the mayor of Barrow, from traveling to Juneau to communicate their community's needs. They would be simply prohibited from using taxpayer money to travel to Juneau to make their needs known. So during a 90-day session and they actually are fairly busy, at least for 30 days of that. And
really busy the last 3.
Really busy the last 3. They can't be down there defending the needs or even advocating for the interests of their community. So if your kids are falling through the school floor in Pitkas Point, too bad, you got to write a letter. You will not be able to go down to defend, nor can you hire anybody to do it for you. And the second part of that is so that's the part about lobbying. And you know, lobbying's a tricky word. It's kind of a charged word. People assume that's automatically bad. Well, you know, your community going to Juneau to talk about the needs about building schools and roads, that is lobbying. That is fighting for the fair share of the oil wealth that belongs to us all. That is done in the form of lobbying.
Well, maybe the connotation, you're right, about lobbyists, you know, the whole cigar and that thing, and Room 604, the Baronoff, maybe we should just call those lobbyists like Portia Babcockers. And then the people that are actually going to do the will of the people, we could just we need to take our word back of lobby, because right now there are people who are lobbyists for like whole sections of the Yukon River, of, you know, of different villages. They'll go and represent several of their interests, correct?
Correct.
And so at this point, they couldn't do that anymore.
Correct. They would not be able to go, but the multinational corporations that you referenced would have no such ban. So when you think about it, the question is who's left in Juneau? Because not only are the communities banned from going, if you're a trade association, so you are, I know Resource Development Council may not be the best, but it's a good example. Resource Development Council or other the ANCSA CEOs, any of those guys who have a trade association would also be banned because they're not a 501c3. They'd be banned from lobbying. So, you know, the other thing I want to make sure people really understand is that this prohibition of kind of communicating the needs of your community extends to the state of Alaska up to the federal government. We would be unable to send any one of our elected officials to DC to talk about what we need here. This ban is not just for communication between local government and state government, it's all forms of government. So it's way bigger than it seems. Those words, they seem very nice, but it's a deception.
So if there's an island that's got a, you know, some sort of military installation on it, say, or some sort of place that has a military installation, and that town has some concerns, or they are like, well, there's a problem with this, or we really would like to co-develop this with you. They can't send anyone to DC to talk to. They can't make those sort of contacts. No, they would not be able to do that. So that is how it silences communities, and it bothers a lot of Alaskans the way that it silences communities. Obviously, you know, if you are Anchorage and you have, you know, half of the legislative districts, if everybody all agreed on something, you might get something done. But you know, the chances they don't all agree on everything either. But there's a second part that they reference in there, and it's about government contractors and the bans on government contractors and their families. I want to be really clear. The limit for a government contract that applies to this ban is $500. So if you have a $500 contract, the example we use in our campaign is somebody who has a contract to plow a parking lot. You know, they've got a $2,000 contract to plow a parking lot for the winter. Not only does that individual lose their ability to make a political contribution to anybody that they choose, the ban extends to their family. And can I read the family? Because this is my favorite part. Immediate family member includes a spouse, child, spouse's child, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, parent, sibling, grandparent, grandchild, step-brother, sister, step-parent, brother-in-law, parent-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, guardian, and with a nod to inclusiveness, domestic partner. Those are all of the people who are taken out when you have when you have a contract. My example is, for the last couple years, I've worked with the Alaska Mental Health Trust, helping them do some advocacy for homelessness and brain injury. So for that contract, I would take out my husband, who served in the military for 27 years. And how many years did you serve?
7. And my father-in-law, who served in Guadalcanal. So my state contract takes those men's constitutional rights away. They can no longer give to the candidate of their choice. Because I have a job. Because I'm in business, they lose their rights. I know. And your question was about constitutionality.
Right.
Well, it's clearly not constitutional.
So then why, but it doesn't have to be constitutional to be on a ballot.
You're right. It doesn't have to be constitutional to be on our ballot. So I think people assume that when something's before them in this kind of legal language, that it must pass some kind of constitutional muster. That is not how ballot initiatives work.
Well, we just found that out with ballot Prop 8 in California yesterday, and that you can't, it's unconstitutional, and that seems pretty clear. Right, but it also shows the example that it doesn't have to be constitutional, and when it comes to your civil liberties and your base rights, those aren't up for a vote.
That is exactly
and so this
right.
would be
This is tantamount to us asking us to vote away thousands and thousands of our neighbors' rights. I mean, it's the family members.
Well, I've seen my neighbors' signs. No, I'm kidding. Actually, that just isn't how we're set up. Every vote should be counted and counted appropriately, and people should be able to contribute and participate and walk door to door and to do any of those things that are part of the process. And it seems that instead of encouraging people to do that, this is just like, no, you're going to have to sit on your hands and your wallet for a while.
Well, this would be a situation where not only could you be in the fines for making an illegal or accepting an illegal contribution, they're a misdemeanor. It's a criminal offense to solicit the wrong person.
So maybe you've got people in your extended family who don't know that you had that contract. They just think you work at one place and you had these other contracts. If they participated by writing a check out, if someone was being an asshat and looking for all those things, which of course everybody would then, they would have a misdemeanor.
The candidate. So if you had if you had a sole source government contract, you would be convicted. You would be guilty of a misdemeanor, and so would the candidate who asked you. Because you have to agree. They're asking you actually in this initiative, this is all the devil's in the details in this thing, right? They're actually asking you to sign a piece of paper in which you sign away your rights and your all your family's rights to make these contributions. So this thing is way more than it appears on those few beautiful sentences, which seem so like, who doesn't want to stop bad people from doing bad things, right? Who doesn't want to try to take back their control of a process that they may feel is out of control? This is not the way. This is this is not a poo-poo platter. You don't get to eat the part you like here.
Right.
This is you get it all, and there's nothing you can do about the rest.
Well, I would disagree. I think it's a poo-poo platter. But I mean a different kind. All kinds of different poos on this platter. All right, so if people want to know more about this, where do they need to go? They can go online, and then they need to vote no in the primary.
Absolutely. Vote no on August 24th on ballot number 1. We have a great website called stopthegaglaw.com, and you could go there and kind of track the press coverage of this as you've seen their campaign bloom, and we've decided not to do this anymore because we're going to have to disclose who we are. And then you can see really the coalition that has been built that is opposing this is probably the biggest coalition that's been built to oppose any any kind of political action in the state. We have over 76 organizations and communities that have come out against it.
It's the first thing Dan Sullivan's done that I agree with. Mayor Dan Sullivan has come out and opposed this ballot initiative. So it must be bad. Well, I'm just saying, take everybody you can. It's that bad, and it's beyond politics.
It is beyond politics. It absolutely is beyond politics.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you for having us.
Joelle Hall. All right, we'll be right back with our panel on More Up North.